What's up guys, Sean here, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys my 10th scale race setups. I have my TLR 22x4 and over here are my TEKNO ET410.2, and I also have a package right here. So these setups are going to switch a little bit. I had two ESCs fry in this, one ESC fry in this. They were all Macklin, the M Max Pro 160 amp ESCs, and yeah, I strongly advise against those ESCs. The ESC that I replaced the Macklin with in my TLR is the HOBBYWING. What is it? Something XR10 Pro G2, or it might be G3. I don't know. It's their 160 amp ESC, and this is actually going into my TEKNO because I have a 6.5 turn Trinity RevTech X Factor motor in this bad boy, and it needs the bigger ESC. However, in my buggy, I have a 13.5 Trinity RevTech X Factor, and it doesn't need that powerful of an ESC. So I ordered a new ESC to put in this buggy, since this is a stock class configuration, and this is going to move over to the TRUGGY, and then I'll be good to go. So let's see what's in the box real quick, and then I'm going to teach you guys a little bit about soldering. So slide this on over, crack open this box. This is from A-Main Hobbies. Alright, so right here I have the XR10 Pro stock spec ESC. This is good for down to a 10.5 turn motor. This is only 80 amp. This replaced their V3 100 amp ESC, which is kind of annoying. They should have kept the 100 amp because you can run lower turn motors on it. However, this is going to work just fine for me, and it's actually a good bit lighter than the G2. So I'm going to have some weight savings, and it will completely power this 22x4 just fine, and still has all the same pro features as the XR10 Pro G2 does. So let's open this bad boy up, see what we got in the box. Alright, so this is what it looks like when you open her up. And wow, that is a tiny ESC. Oh, get this wire out of the way. Very tiny, very small footprint. So that is cool. See what we have going on here. so right off the bat, we do not need this external power button. That's just extra wire to start to create a rat's nest, which I don't want. I like my wiring nice and clean. This is the receiver cable, so that's going to go to my receiver. We have our capacitor. It's just a single capacitor, which is technically all you need, but I'm actually going to pull the capacitor off of the Macklin because that is a triple capacitor, and I'm going to put the triple capacitor on here just to give us a little extra boost of power and make sure I can put down 100% of the power that this 13.5 will put out. So very nice. We have our manual and we have some stickers, and we do not have a sensor cable. So the next thing that we want to do is pull this battery out. I'm just going to disconnect it, pull out my bullet plugs, slide over my battery hold downs. They just slide out of the way. Pop the battery out. I'm going to be unsoldering this motor, and then we are going to desolder this motor. We are going to desolder this triple capacitor. We are going to desolder the fan, which I have hardwired to the back of the ESC, and we will go ahead and pull out this sensor wire right here. So chances are I will be using this sensor wire for the TEKNO ET410.2. This Macklin MX Pro ESC is a piece of shit. Do not recommend. 0 out of 10. And I did highly recommend these for a while. I absolutely loved these when I first got them, but something that's really crappy that I noticed about these compared to a lot of other companies, you constantly need to update these Macklins, which is ridiculous. My HOBBYWINGs, I have not had to update them once. So it's kind of you can't depend on an ESC that constantly requires updates to fix bugs and glitches. That's just absolutely insane. I want to be able to throw the battery in my car and the ESC start up, go through all its safety checks and all, and be ready to go every single time. I don't want to have to fight with it every couple races or every race. I want to know that the car is going to work when I throw that battery in and I'm getting ready to do my qualifier or my main. It's just absolutely ridiculous, the unreliability of these Macklins. And they did fix one for me. I did have to pay shipping, and their repair only lasted a couple races. I never let these overheat. I temp my electronics constantly. I do run fans. I just happened to pull the fan off of this because this was coming out. Alright, so first things first, when it comes to soldering, it is good to have an actual soldering station because this will keep the soldering iron much hotter than your standard, plug in the wall bull crap. And that helps to melt the solder pretty much immediately, and that prevents your electronics from getting really hot from the heat transfer or slow heat transfer and then damaging your electronics. This is so hot that it'll melt the solder very quickly before your electronics like your motor or your ESC have time to heat up and become damaged. So when you're desoldering, first thing you want to do is make sure you get a little bit of solder on the tip of your soldering iron, because the flux or rosin that is in that will help loosen up and melt the existing solder. Boom, just like that. So that was maybe 2 or 3 seconds that it took, and this is cool enough that I can touch it with my thumb. See, I'm pressing my thumb into that. See, I can grab this with my finger. So that is the difference between a good soldering station and like a wood burning kit style soldering iron. Need to get more solder on here. Another thing you want, or that might help you, is a soldering iron with a big, like, wide tip. The more surface area that comes in contact with the solder joint, the faster it's going to heat it up and the more effective it's going to be. Also, moving it around, boom. All right, get some more solder on there. And you don't need to press in hard or anything. Just gonna boop. Okay. The ESC is free besides these this fan that I have hardwired. A little bit more solder. Okay, my joint is right here. Let's see if I can zoom in. Boom. Oh. See, pretty much instant. Still have solder on it. Boom. See how fast that works? Hopefully we're able to see that and it did not move out of frame. But yeah, pretty much instant. Then what we're going to do, we're going to get the capacitor off of here. This ESC is already fried, so it doesn't really matter how much heat I put to it. Fuck, back out. Okay. Yeah, so back to what I was saying. This ESC is already fried, so it doesn't matter how much heat I put to it, but just for demonstration purposes, you know, you guys are probably not going to be working on an ESC that's already fried. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to desolder these old wires from this triple capacitor. And I need to remember that the positive is on the right side of it when it is standing straight up. So what I'm going to do for this, because I'm reusing this part, I'm going to use this little guy called a helping hand. Clamp one of the wires. Clean off the tip of my soldering iron. Make sure your sponge is nice and wet. Alright, let's get some solder on this bad boy. Boom, baby. Boom. See how quick that worked? Drop that old wire out. Solder. Boom. Alright, so this is the positive side. I'm going to grab a red marker to mark this, just so I don't forget. I have a little paint marker, so we're just gonna see. So that will remind me that is the positive side. and pull up the TLR 22X4. Make sure you guys can see what I am doing. Alright, so all I'm doing right this second is desoldering this motor. So clean tip. Fresh solder. Get a little bit more solder this time. Okay, so that's desoldered. Now, in order to get this excess solder off of this motor, see this excess solder on here? We are going to use this guy right here. This is a solder sucker. So, what you do is that, you heat up the solder, boom, it's gonna pull it up. So, clean up the tip. Add some more solder. Remember, you have to add solder to completely melt and loosen up the existing solder. All nice and melted and loose. Boom, gone. Melt it, loosen it, gone. Let's see here, a little bit more. Boom, clean as a whistle. And she is clean, boys. Alrighty. So now I'm going to be ready to pull this XR10 Pro G2 out and get ready to solder this in to the TEKNO. So the next thing we want to do, now that we have this desoldered, I'm going to go ahead and pop it up. This is just held onto the chassis with mounting tape. So I'm just taking a little flathead screwdriver. I'm going to get up underneath of that. And there we have it. It should be loose. Yep, it's loose. Alright. And now I'm going to kind of pivot it. See if I can get zoomed in here. Make sure you guys can see. Okay. So what I need to do, I'm actually unplugging the sensor wire. So I'm grabbing that by all of the wires. You don't want to just grab one of them or it'll put all that stress on the one pin connector. you want to grab all of them at the same time as you pull, so it evenly distributes that stress and does not damage your sensor wire. We'll go ahead and take this off before we'll go ahead and take off this mounting tape, clean it, and put on new mounting tape before we put it in the TEKNO. But for now, we'll just leave this together, and you can see I have my non-polarity capacitor mounted to the side of this ESC with the same mounting tape. The mounting tape that I've been using and having really good luck with is made by Gorilla Tape or Gorilla Glue, and I think this is rated for like 50 pounds, so it's the strong stuff. I always recommend using the strongest mounting tape you can find, because when it comes to RC cars, especially if you're racing outdoor or even indoor, carpet tracks, you have carpet dust and stuff, you want your ESC and your electronics to be mounted very securely. And it's just peace of mind knowing that it's not going to pop up. Yes, it's a little bit harder to pry it up when you need to take it out, but if you do this right, really you shouldn't need to take it out very often. Plus, a lot of the vehicles now have optional ESC trays or ESC plates that you mount the ESC to, and you just unscrew the plate so you don't have to pull it on and off anyway. So get yourself some strong mounting tape. It'll save you lots of headaches. Now what I need to do is unhook my ESC from the receiver, and I have this car outfitted with a Sanwa receiver. This is the RX 482. So the first plug in the receiver, or should I say the first slot, is for the steering servo, and the second slot is for the ESC. One easy way to remember this is 1 to turn, 2 to burn. So that's how I always remember it. Pull these up a little bit. Okay, so pull these up, and here we go. I'm gonna grab it by all 3 of the wires. Simply pull straight up. Boom. Now I can pull this out. Got it. All right, that was a little tough. Took a little bit more force than I typically would like to use. So we're just going to go ahead and inspect this. Make sure there is not any damage, anything that's going to cause us any issues when I go ahead and install this in the TEKNO. Okay, so I can see all the wires are still securely secured into the connector pins that lay inside of this servo connector. All right, so the HOBBYWING XR10 Pro G2 is out, and you can see I have it outfitted with a sexy American flag. Always repping the good old US of A here at Blazing Fades. Look at this sexy chassis, ladies and gentlemen. So one thing I like to always keep handy whenever I'm working on anything really is some isopropyl alcohol. I like to keep it in a little spray bottle. This is 91%. I'm going to grab a paper towel, and I'm just going to clean this chassis down really good so there is no issue when I go to mount the new ESC. Alright guys. Alright guys, so the next thing we want to do is mount this ESC. I got the wire that goes to the receiver under this little channel down here, and I put the double-sided tape on the back of this. You want to make sure you clean the back of the ESC and the surface you're mounting it to, which is the chassis obviously, with alcohol. Get any oil, dirt, anything that's going to affect this from adhering strongly. Another thing, you want to figure out where you want it positioned. So I want it, oh, I skipped a step. You also want to get this sensor wire plugged in, because it's going to be a lot more difficult once this is mounted. So I'll show you. Have a little port on the back of it. You want to make sure the pins are lined up, because if you don't, then you can end up bending one of the pins out of place, and then it's just a pain. Take a flathead. So we know we're lined up. Go ahead and push that in all the way. Make sure it's in there nice and tight. Okay, so we have the sensor wire in, ESC wires ran. Now next thing, we want to make sure that our steering arm, or whatever the hell the name is for that, is not going to hit the ESC. Alright, so that's mounted. Let's see how we like that. This is both these wires are going this way for the battery. This capacitor, I'm going to cut off this single capacitor, and I'm going to solder on this triple capacitor. So this is actually going to go under here. Just getting my wires kind of routed a little bit so I can see, make sure I like the position before I start cutting any of these wires down to be soldered. Alright, so I moved it around a little bit off camera. I think I'm going to mount it like that. Alright guys, so I got all this mounted up. I decided to go ahead and put in the triple capacitor. I have it mounted in front of the ESC. It does not affect anything. As you see, nothing hits. Looks nice and clean. Now I have my wires kind of laid out and the directions they're going. We have our negative wire and our positive battery wire. And then we have our A, B, and C wires for the motor, which are labeled at the bottom of the ESC. A is the first one, then it's B, and then it's the negative, and then it's C, and then the positive. So we have A, B, and C going up from the bottom to the top of the motor. And I have two new battery tabs or battery bullets, gold plated, and that's what we're going to be using for our battery wires. So fire up the soldering station. Actually, first things first, before I flip this on, I'm going to fill this whole little bottom section up with water and let this sponge soak it all up. Now, it's not going to soak it all up immediately, so it's okay to fill this up with water because this sponge will actually soak it all up, and you want a lot of water in there on the sponge just to help, you know, extend the life of the sponge, and it also helps to get the tip clean. So give it about 60 seconds, press down on it, get the sponge to start soaking it up, and then look at that. You're gonna see that sponge grow. Okie dokie. Fire this bad boy up. We don't need it on 896 degrees Fahrenheit. We are going to, we'll do 662 Fahrenheit because this solder is actually thin, and you want to make sure you get the solder that actually has lead in it. The lead-free stuff does not work very good at all. So this specific solder has 2% flux. I know it has silver in it. It has some lead in it. That's gonna make the solder just wick into the wire when you go to tin the wires, and it just connects so much better, so much cleaner. I'll show you that. I'll show you guys that in a second. But yeah, first we're going to cut these down to roughly the length. We want to leave just a hair extra to work with, and we'll snip that off if we need to right before we actually solder it on to these solder tabs or motor tabs. So nice thing about the soldering station, heats up nice and fast. Have a nice clean tip here. Go ahead, and we are going to tin the motor real quick. So you want to get a good bit of solder on the tip. Okay, we're going to place that down onto the motor tab, and then we're going to touch the solder to the motor tab. And the solder that's on the tip will actually start to spread out and adhere to the motor tab, and will help more solder flow onto the motor tab from the point where you are touching it. So that's how you tin something. You'll see the solder kind of like suck up to it, and you'll see it like kind of adhere to it. Okay, so we have all three of the motor tabs tinned. Still have some solder on the tip right there. Go ahead and get a clean tip. Put that away for a second. And let's see. You don't want to make the wires too tight. You want them to lay nice and everything, but you want to be able to have a little bit of slack to adjust your motor or pull your motor out without having to unmount the ESC. You don't want everything pulled completely tight. So I like how that's looking. You can use some hobby scissors, get a nice clean cut. They're a little bit sharper. What we're gonna do, we're gonna tin these and then I will trim them. This gives us plenty of wire to tin, plenty of surface area to tin it without burning up the rubber sleeving. So what we want to use to tin this, we're going to use the helping hands. Go ahead and flip it up like that. Grab it. And let me zoom in. Okie dokie. So I cleaned off my tip. Now add the solder. Get lots of solder on the tip. All right, so now with the lots of solder on the tip, I'm gonna touch the wire, heat the wire up, then we're gonna touch the new solder to the melted solder that's on the wire. And that is just soaking all the new solder up. So I'll unclamp this and flip it over. And we just wanna make sure this is completely covered in solder. I sucked it in all over. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Nice and tinned. Okay, we can actually add a little bit more. All right, yeah, it's good to have a little extra on there. Go on to the next one. I didn't even clamp that last one. There we go. We'll clamp this one. Okay, all tinned up. Now what we're gonna do, let these all cool down for a minute. I mean, they're all not too hot that I can't touch them, but we still want to let them cool down because we don't want to let anything get crazy hot. There's no need for it, and that can damage your electronics. That's one of the whole reasons you want a soldering station that will maintain a high temperature, because it heats up and melts the solder pretty much instantly, and it allows you to do your soldering quickly before it has time to transfer all that heat to the electronics in an amount that would actually cause damage to the electronics. And then we'll go ahead and line that up. Okay, so a good thing you can do when you are at this point, you want to get some little pliers. I'm gonna have to go grab some little pliers, but you hold the wire in the position that you want, which I like. See, if I just held it, pulled it all the way tight, that would look like crap. But you leave that little bit of slack, and I like to kind of grab the wire and spin it counterclockwise, just like a 1/8 of a turn or a 1/4 turn, and then set it in place. And that's going to give it that nice curved uniform kind of look, to where they're all going to lay nicely together. And I'm going to tweak each one so that once they're all soldered, they're all going to sit exactly the same, parallel with each other, and you won't have to put anything to hold all 3 wires together for it to look nice and clean. They will be held in place naturally because it will be a quality solder job. So okay, I got my little pliers, and I'm going to use these to pinch the end of this. First, get my soldering iron ready. Want to get more solder on the tip. You're going to want a good bit on there. And grab this with your left hand. A little bit difficult because I almost cut my finger off earlier. And I think it's going to be something like that. And hold down on top. You'll feel when they both melt together. Let go. Well, let the soldering iron up. Don't let go of your pliers. Oh, no, didn't get it. Add some more solder to the tip. Oop. Oop. There we go. All right, add some more solder to the tip. Okay, nice, clean, tight connection. see if I'll be able to snip off this excess or not. If I can't, then, oh, I should be able to. Okay. Very nice. Very nice, very clean. Go ahead and hold our wire into position with our pliers. The reason why we do it with the pliers is because during this part, the wire will get a little bit hot, and you need to be able to hold it down tight to the surface to make sure you get that solid connection. Solder on the tip. Get this the fuck out of the way. Ugh. All right. All right, see how that's following the same form? And then this last one is going to follow the same form. Oh yeah. Boom. See, nice and quick. Didn't even let it get that hot. Now, grab it with these, make little adjustments. Look at that. Got them wires flowing, baby. That's fucking sexy. That's what I'm talking about. Oh yeah. They ain't going nowhere. Hopefully I don't wake up my daughter. Hell yeah. They look good. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now for this next part, the battery wires. Okay. What you're going to want to do is grab a battery, put the battery in so you can see exactly where you want to cut these wires. Good. Drop the battery in. Okay, so we have our positive wire. It's gonna go something like that. And our negative wire is gonna go something like that. So we want them both together. Okay, so you guys get the point, the idea. So something like that. So what we can do while we hold them right here, we can go ahead and mark them. I still have a marker over here, which I don't. So, okay, what I'm gonna do then is I'm just going to cut it. I should be leaving plenty of excess. Now that was just a rough cut, just to get us in the ballpark. And you definitely want to leave a hair extra, because once you solder to these tabs, in order to get these tabs into the battery, you're gonna need a little bit of slack. You can't have these all the way, you know, stretched as tight as possible, you know, ready to yank your speed controller out. You wanna have some kind of slack that you can work with if you need to pull your motor out or pull your battery bullets out. So that's the reasoning for that. And I just have this extra heat shrink on here to mark this wire so I don't accidentally plug it in backwards for any reason. So once I figure all that out, or figure out the exact size, I will heat shrink this up at the end of this wire. So probably like, you know, right there. So that'll be a nice indicator that I can't miss, showing me which one is the positive. So yeah, gonna do something like that. Okay, so the negative is the closest. We'll go ahead and do the negative first and then do the positive based off of that. So once again, we're gonna strip this wire. Okay, let's grab our helping hand. And we are going to tin the wire. Beautiful. definitely want the helping hands for this part. Put our battery bullet in there. All right, now we need to tin this. Same deal. Solder on your tip. You're gonna touch the spot where you want to solder. Solder on the tip will help transfer the heat and help melt the new solder. You touch the solder to the surface. Boom. See how you can see it filled with that liquid solder? Now, what we're gonna do, hold the wire there, and I need solder. Solder on the tip. Lots of solder on the tip. This is one of those ones definitely gonna need to use these. Definitely want this tinned up really good too. So I got some more solder on both. We're going to grab this. Ooh. Just like that. Beautiful. Hot. Look at that sexy motherfucker. Once that cools down, we can actually fill that in the rest of the way if you wanted. Or for weight savings. Once it cools down, we'll give it a good tug and everything. As long as it's on there completely solid, there is not really any reason to add any extra solder. Yeah, that's not going nowhere. That is 100% solid. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so that is going to be our reference. That is what we are going to snip this positive one based off of. We're going to follow the shape of that wire when we cut the one for the positive. And when it's all said and done, it should lay together nice, even a little bit better than that. But you guys can see what I have going on here, how we're making the wires flow together where we want them. So we'll give it a second to cool down and everything. And then you can see my solder joints from the capacitor. Boom, boom. Nice and clean. No excessive wiring laying around anywhere. Everything is nice. But one thing I've learned is you don't want to make your wires too short either. So all my wires have a little bit of room for give. And you want that so you can work on your car easily. The next thing I want to do is solder this bullet onto the positive battery wire. I have it marked where I want to cut it. That will give me a little bit extra to work with for the wire to sit just as it is laying right here. And I think that is how I want to do it. And also, before we do anything else, I also want to add a little bit of red heat shrink. I don't want to do this entire length, but I want it to be very visible. So I'm gonna add this little piece right here, and we'll go ahead and heat that up once we get everything situated so we can put it all the way up to the end. So just slide it back out of our way. All right, so we are gonna go ahead and cut this clean at that mark. All right, and now we need to strip it. Go ahead. Next thing we're gonna do is tin the wire. So just twisted it up to keep those strands together. Gonna use my helping hands. Flip it up like that. Clamp it just to hold it still. All right, remember, lots of solder on the tip, and I will link this exact solder. I'll link the soldering station. I highly recommend both. So the solder that's already melted on the tip, that when that drops onto the wire, then you touch your new solder to that solder that's already melted, and it will suck the rest of the new solder into the wire strands. So it will be completely encased in solder. Not only encased, but it will be pretty much like wicks it through the wire. That's very important to get a nice solid connection. So there we go. We'll make sure you have plenty of solder on there. All right. Next thing we want to do is tin our battery bullet. You guys can see that. Fresh solder on the tip. Go ahead, touch the surface. Once that solder gets onto the bullet, then you just need to touch the new solder to the solder that dropped on, and it will literally pull the fresh solder onto it, and it'll adhere to it as you feed the solder towards it. Alright, so that's how it looks once you tin it properly. Nice and clean. Okay, now we are going to go ahead and solder the wire to it. So remember, we need some pliers to hold this wire. Oh, first things first, double check our length. Pull this negative out. I don't want anything to start up yet. Fresh bullets fit in very tight. Okay. Alright, yeah, we'll just go with this, and if we need to, I can always shorten it and redo it. Okay. That's our position right there. Okay. Some fresh solder on there. Ooh. Come on. There we go. Boom. Like a fucking boss. Nice and quick. Didn't get anything too hot. That is a nice solid connection. I will go ahead and give it a nice tug to show you. Fucking hot. But yeah, that's not going anywhere. Nice strong connection. Okay, so we're gonna slide our heat shrink all the way up like that. Or actually first, let's go ahead and make sure I like the length. Perfect. Hell yeah. Okay. Excelente. Okay, I do want to add a little bit of solder on top of this just to make it look a little nicer. We don't need it for a to be a solid joint. It's a very strong solid connection, but I do like to make things pretty. Go ahead and add a lot of solder to the tip. Do a little dab. Oh, grab our pliers. full. Okay, cool. So on a little bit of an upward angle so I can easily pull it. Right, I'm gonna take my lighter. Just do a quick little burst. Spin it as you do that. And she tight. She tight. She tight, boys. That's how you do it. Okay. Go ahead and test it. Whoa, ho, ho, baby. All right. Moment of truth. Turn on my Sanwa MT44 and she's on. Yep. That's what you call a fast servo. Yeah, buddy. She's all wired up, ready to go. I probably could have been a little bit more conservative on the red, but I can always cut off this excess if it bothers me. But one thing I've learned when it comes to expensive electronics, it's always good to be safe rather than sorry. And if you don't do that and make your positive wire very distinguishable, when you are rushing around in the pits, you know, you're in a hurry and you go to plug it up real quick, it is very, very easy to plug in your wires backwards, and it is just a matter of time before you fry an ESC. So it's a good thing. And I might kick the angle down just a little bit, but the thing is, with it kicked up like this, I can pull it out much easier. If you saw before, I had to actually slide the battery out to get a good grip on it to pull the wire out. So yeah, she looks good. Now it is time to finish up the wiring on the ET410. So 22x4 is off to the side. Turn off my transmitter. Throw this bad boy up here, and this one's actually going to be a quicker job because we are not doing the battery wires. I'm going to leave these exactly how they are because as they are, they reach the battery location just fine. and this is cut to length exactly for my 22x4. So if I ever need to pull this ESC out of this and put it back in my 22x4, I won't have to redo any wires. So I'm not going to be cutting down anything. I'm going to be, these are all ready to go. So just work with it the way it is. And I was also very fortunate or happy to find that the location that I had this capacitor mounted on the side of this HOBBYWING XR10 Pro G2 fits perfectly between the ESC and the motor, and it's literally just the right spot. If it went any further back, it wouldn't fit here, and if it went any further towards the outside of the chassis, it would be hanging off and pushing into the body. So pretty cool how that worked. No need to change it. This is the receiver wire, and typically I would if I knew this was going to be permanently in here, I would cut this down and put a new connector on it, but because there's a chance that this could go back in my TLR and this is the perfect length for the TLR, I am simply going to coil it up and plug it in, and I will show you how to do that. Basically, you're just going to wrap it around a driver, but while I have the soldering iron nice and hot, let's get these wires soldered on because I already have the rest of the wiring all connected. I have the ESC mounted, so let's knock this out quickly. And the wires are in the positions as follows: A, B, and C. The locations on the motor: A at the bottom, B in the middle, C at the top. And first thing we need to do is go ahead, get this tip clean, and we are going to make sure that these motor tabs are nice and tinned, which they should already be, but I just want to get a little bit of fresh solder down on there. Solder on the tip. Oh yeah. All right, beautiful. They are ready to go. All right, got some of those broken strands out of that piece. Got some wire exposed. Gonna do the same thing for the rest of these. With the style, the motor tabs on this mod motor are different than the motor tabs on the 13.5 motor that I have in my 22x4, and these motor tabs do better when you have a little bit, you just need a little bit more wire exposed. So that's what we're doing. And to be clear, we don't need more wire exposed for the function, like to get a solid connection. I can do it with the smallest bit, but it's going to look better and it is going to be a little bit more solid. Back to wire C. this nice and saucy. Oh yeah, that's much nicer. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and hold this one in place. Alright. Go ahead, get some solder on her. Perfect. Okay. Very nice. Alright. Go ahead and make sure this last one is tinned up. Alright, more solder. go ahead and connect her up. Alright, a little bit more salt. Oh yeah. Would you look at that? She on there, ladies and gentlemen. Actually bring this one down a little bit, but we'll try it out like that. It's certainly not bad. Okay guys, so we are going to coil this up on our nut driver. Here's one of the hex drivers, and then here's the nut driver. So you can see the difference in the shaft thickness. And we're going to use this one because it will coil this up in less wraps, and it'll just look neater in this tight space. So what we're going to do, start at the plug. And we'll start down here. Okay. And we're just gonna, no, we gotta start up here. Okay. So you hold it at the end, hold your connector, and you're just gonna keep spinning it. You're gonna pinch it with your finger, pinch it down, you know, tight around the shaft as you coil it. You know what? I'm sorry guys. We're actually gonna go ahead and use this because there's just not enough room on the nut driver, so I apologize. Scratch that idea. You want to make sure you're keeping it all flat. in. And push it down. Alright, that's kind of an ugly coil. Yeah, very ugly coil. But you guys get the picture. Keeps it down, out of the way. Down, out of the way. And also so we don't have to trim it, because I want to be able to put this back in the 22x4 if I need to. So that is that. It is connected. Everything's connected. Let's go ahead and see if it fires up. Receiver on. Boom, baby. All right, guys, we're in business. So I hope this video was helpful. Hope you guys learned something. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. I love you guys. Stay tuned. Oh shit, I love you guys. Jesus loves you. Stay tuned, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.